Visitors often head to Pulau Ubin for a rustic experience they can't get on mainland Singapore. The island's rich biodiversity also makes it an ideal location for the study of a variety of ecosystems. In this week's Spotlight, Clara Lee finds out how Ubin draws the line between tourist attraction and ecological testbed.
Just a 10-minute boat ride from Singapore lies the offshore island of Pulau Ubin. Home to 6 major ecosystems, its coastal forests, mangrove swamps, and seagrass lagoons are a haven for ecologists studying just about every terrain between land and sea. But since the pandemic, locals who found themselves grounded in Singapore have also flocked to Ubin's shores, many in search of an island getaway. Cycling trails and nature walks were among activities that drew a crowd over the Chinese New Year break. But some researchers worry that the increased footfall may damage sensitive habitats.
There has to be a balance between, how much we love nature, but we of course don't want to love it to death, because unchecked, excess would result in a lot of, visitorship. It will result in trampling especially for people who are just enthusiastic but aren't aware of their impact on the environment when they go visit it. I think part of the effort comes from educating the public on how to be a gentle visitor to our natural habitats. You want to leave only footprints.
And that's the philosophy of Team Seagrass, a group of volunteers founded by Dr. Siti that studies seagrasses on Ubin. These plants are a good marker of water quality and ensure its surrounding marine ecosystems thrive.
When monitoring seagrass meadows, researchers typically look out for a few things. The first is coverage. A larger meadow generally indicates a healthier ecosystem. This particular meadow stretches about 6.5 hectares. The second is the composition of seagrass species. The more there are, the better it can adapt to ecological changes. Now, this particular species is called Cymodocea rotundata, but that is quite a mouthful, so researchers have decided to nickname them ribbon seagrass on account of how they look. This particular species now takes up the majority of this meadow.
But not all researchers have a problem with the increase in footfall. Over at the coastal forests, PhD candidate Ong Xinrui finds that going off the beaten path helps to maximize her ground for research. These dung beetles are the main subject of her study.
Dung beetles, they rely primarily on mammal dung for food and nesting resources, and so they can act as somewhat of an indicator of mammal diversity and their populations.
And since they respond quite rapidly to environmental changes, they're a good gauge of the effectiveness of forest regeneration efforts. This particular site has proven to be fertile testing ground.
I'm just checking this canopy trap for signs of dung beetles. There are 4 of such canopy traps and 4 ground traps around this area, and they're all spaced about 50 meters apart. This canopy trap works by having dung hung in the center here. When the dung beetles are attracted to it, they'll fall down this bottle where they'll be trapped at the bottom.
Human interactions with the forest can be beneficial. So for instance, in Ubin, there are a couple of conservation outreach programs, such as nature guiding walks. So I guess with these kinds of activities, people come to appreciate nature, and I guess they will understand the importance of conserving these kinds of natural habitats.
In fact, some researchers say human presence could help restore certain terrains. Back in 2014, Dr. Dan Fries co-founded a volunteer group called the Restore Ubin Mangroves Initiative. It aims to raise public awareness about mangrove preservation.
Yeah, we put a lot of emphasis on communicating the importance of mangroves to the public from the very beginning of the Restore Ubin Mangroves Initiative. Because we quickly realized if you want people to protect something, they have to love it. And if someone's going to love something, they need to understand it first.
Through volunteer activities, members of the public learned how to collect soil samples without disturbing these forests. In doing so, they've come to learn more about the ecological benefits of these swamps, which includes coastal protection around the island.
The mangrove forests on Pulau Ubin have been around for hundreds of years, and this sample of soil is at least 130 years old. It was taken from these very grounds about a meter deep. Using this, researchers were able to find out that the mangrove forests across the island trap about 500 tons of carbon per hectare.
Plans to restore more than 5 hectares of Ubin's mangroves are currently underway. As the manager of the island, NParks has also refined its development agenda to safeguard Ubin's natural terrains while keeping it accessible for visitors.
Facilities like roads, earth tracks, boardwalks and shelters are carefully planned and laid out so that visitors can enjoy the island with minimal impact to the core biodiversity areas. And to supplement this, we have engagement programs that reach out to the community, such as guided tours, as well as programs such as coastal cleanups.
Ultimately, researchers agree that these habitats are rooted to Ubin's history, and the island needs to straddle between cultural and ecological preservation.
Well, very few mangroves around the world are untouched by human influence, often because people have had such a long association historically with mangroves. So even on Ubin we had kampongs living close to the mangroves, and those mangroves were a source of food and fuel and livelihoods.
Ubin is a great place for recreational activities. We do see quite a couple of visitors coming by to cycle, to take a walk around like Ubin's forested areas along the forest trails.
We shouldn't think about leaving it untouched. We should think about managing its resilience to change, because like it or not, climate change is real and it's happening to all our habitats. And it's more about how we ensure that these habitats have the best chance at being able to survive those changes that climate change is bringing on.
Well, that's Singapore Tonight. Don't forget your